My dad left us and now my stepdad hates me. My mum would just cry and give me empty promises. My stepdad, dad, would somehow makes it my fault. Now let's finally get to my father, F. Even if I could get a hold of him, my bio dad doesn't care enough about my brother and I'd even give us his number. I highly doubt he would want to know how fucked up his biggest mistake truly is. So, strangers on the internet are the next best thing because I can't afford a proper psychologist. So, buckle in because this is going to be a long one. Let's start with a simple question, who am I? I wish that was an easy question to answer but let's try anyway. I am the brother to 6 other siblings. It alternated between 4 or 5 depending on the year since Matt, my stepbrother, had the ability to leave whenever he felt he needed to, son of a man who moved on years ago and a woman who barely ever shows any sign she cares. And stepson too, I don't really know how to describe him. I don't really know how to describe someone who makes me feel so small, so powerless, so weak. What would I even call him? Well, I call him dad since that's what they expect me to do. Although I feel we have never really connected in that type of way, and how could we? We are both completely different people. It's not like I haven't tried to connect to him. As a kid I would try my hardest to get to know him through his interests. Although I find sport kind of boring, I would go to footy games with him just to try to put the effort in. I tried my hardest to mold myself to be the son he wanted, but it was never enough. I would never be my stepbrother, Matt, who is a top bloke. I have nothing against him. I kept trying as hard as I could, and he never returned the energy. It always needed to be something he would enjoy. Anything I suggest gets shot down immediately, as if anything I enjoy just doesn't matter. Let's all go to the beach. No, I don't like sand. Okay, let's go to a steam railway for a picnic. No, because you're the only one who likes trains. It could never be anything that I wanted to do. How can I see him as my dad, when he obviously doesn't want me as a son? Because I had no other choice. Anytime I used to even hint that I didn't see him as a father, his defense was always to rub in my face that my real father, F, doesn't care about me. I guess he was right, but I mean come on, I was only 11. It felt like I wasn't even allowed to mourn F leaving my brother and I. This seriously broke me. It made me feel so alone. I was supposed to worship the ground he walked. Why? Because he stepped up? Can you even call it that? He was just fucking my mother. Why should I see him as a father? Why do I even call him dad? Because I am just doing what I'm told. I remember the day I started calling him dad. I was about 11 years old, 1 year after my father left me and my brother for his wife. He told me that I should call him dad because he basically acts like my dad anyway. That might have been true, but I mean it was only 1 year after F left for the last time and was still regularly calling me. The reason I didn't call him dad at the time was because I wasn't ready. I felt like I was forced to move on too fast. Cut to today and the relationship with him is non-existent. I have no clue who he is, as a person. I know he probably doesn't care about me. Hell, I don't even know if he knows I exist half the time. Go to the next part. My dad left us and now my stepdad hates me. So let's ask me a question. Do I miss him? I wish it was a simple answer. Most of the time I feel like I have moved on, but the answer is no. However, anytime I see him it's like I'm that small child again watching his plane pull out of the terminal, wondering when I will see him again. I guess that particular scenario happened more times in my childhood than I'd like to admit. Call it a childhood tradition, lol, watching F leave my brother and I, over and over and over again. Maybe if I was given time to heal naturally, I wouldn't still think about him so often. I miss him, but I want to forget about him. I look up to him, but I don't want to be like him. I have so many conflicting feelings that don't seem to matter because your brother was able to move on, so why can't you? But hey, I know what you're thinking, but I'm sure you could still talk to your mother, right? And that is where you would be wrong, dear reader. I wish I could talk to my mother. The woman who loves me unconditionally and would do anything to try and make her son happy. All because she loves her son. Wow, now that I'm typing it sounds like such a foreign concept. A loving mother, what a joke. I haven't had that for over a decade. I guess a mother who cares about me is a privilege, not a right. It feels like she forgets I exist, like she's given up on me. She barely ever talks to me. At least until she needs something from me, then I drop everything for her, although I know she wouldn't do the same for me. If I ask her for help I always offer fuel money because I feel so bad asking my mother for help. I know it's a packed house, but is it really that selfish to want my mother's help? I don't know anymore. All I do know is that she obviously doesn't care that much about me. What type of a mother would just stand there and watching her son be beaten and manhandled by the person she expects him to see as his dad? The thing is that she wasn't always like this. Before my mom married my stepdad, she was an amazing mother. She would regularly take John and I for days out to places like the beach, the park, and even picnics at steam railways, and although we couldn't afford to ride them, I never cared. They were always my favorite days out. My mom was trying and that made me happy. Although we had very little, I was the happiest I had ever been. But I guess all good things must come to an end. In this case it was my mother's taste in men that made her go from a loving mother to the person just lets her kids be abused. The my mom dated before my stepdad, let's just say he preferred veal over beef, if you get my drift, the biological father of Mia, and because of this, well, we will get to that when we get to the part about me. Speaking of which, here is the next question. What about you then? I'm not that much better. For example, my mom's dad, grandfather, MGF, who is as sweet as strawberry syrup. The man I used to go to every model train expo with, who I know wants to see me more often. He comes to town once a week to see my family. I almost always decline going over because, well, I don't know. I love my grandfather and yet I can't even drive 5 minutes down the road to see him once a week. If I can't even do that, then am I not any better than F? Again, a question I don't know the answer to. Is it a bad thing that I stopped putting in effort years ago? Does it make me a bad person? If that doesn't, then I know what does. Growing up, my parents would blame all of my trauma on my mom's ex. All the beatings making me feel weak, insults bringing me lower every day, and some other stuff I don't feel comfortable revealing. All these years of abuse, and somehow he was still able to gaslight me into thinking it was all a joke. Because of this, I didn't even realize my dad was abusive until I moved out. Since he made me believe that all my trauma was the fault of Mia's biofather, I became extremely spiteful. I got hateful, abusive towards her. She never knew the truth until I made my mom tell her. She never knew why I was so hateful specifically towards her. Now we are like two peas in a pod, but that doesn't distract from the fact that I took her childhood like I had mine taken. My dad turned everybody else against her because she was mom's golden child, but she was just the sister who had nobody since her entire family was turned against her, and her oldest brother was the person who would always beat her. Why was this? It's because I'm not a good person. As much as I try and make it up to her now, as much as I want to go back and be the protector, she not only deserved but needed. I can't. I ruined my sister's childhood all because I wanted to bring her down with me. How pathetic is that? I wish things were different. I would give anything to change how I treated her, but I can't. I have spent the last few years trying to make it up to her, and although she forgave me years ago and thinks the world of me, I don't feel I deserve her forgiveness. Because of me, she grew up terrified of her own brother. It doesn't matter how often I get her out of that dog piss-soaked house, how often I take her shopping or to the movies. I could give her the world, but it will never change the way I treated her. I feel so much guilt because I love my sister so much and would never hurt her, yet I still let my hatred for a man she didn't even know existed blind me with rage. She deserves so much better than me as a brother. Not a day goes by where I don't regret the way I treated her, but it makes no difference. I still beat her when I was a teenager. I still terrified her to the point where she would roll in a ball in her room and cry. Maybe I deserve all that happened to me. I was a horrible son and an even worse brother. Today, however, I am the person Mia looks up to the most. I'm no longer the person she fears. I'm the brother who got out, the person who taught her to stand up to my dad, and most importantly her big brother who has her back. I wish I could be the person she sees me as. There is nothing I want more than to be the older brother she deserves, but I will never be that person. How could I be? What type of a brother makes his sister feel so powerless? I don't know, but that will never stop me from trying to be the best older brother I possibly can. I may not be the brother she deserves, but that won't stop me from trying to be whatever she needs me to be. If it weren't for Mia, I would be long gone out of their life. Why would I want to associate myself with a mother who has given up on not only herself but also her children, and a man who thinks everything is a joke until the joke's on him? I have lost count of the times I've had shoes thrown at my head, being told to shut up because my sister and I were laughing too loud, or being between both my parents having them play tennis with my head. Anytime I bring up the fact that my mom didn't really feel like a mother, she would devolve into tears. You had a roof over your heads and food in your bellies, she would say. Congratulations, you did the bare minimum. You couldn't protect your kids from being beaten, but hey, at least we didn't starve to death. I will admit I had a room to myself. I'm autistic and had trouble sharing a room with two other people. I will give them credit for that, but all that credit goes out the window when that's the only thing I had for myself. I never even got birthdays to myself since I shared those with Matt. I remember the worst birthday I ever had. It was my 21st, which happened during COVID, so I understand I couldn't do anything. So I just had plans to stay in and eat an entire chocolate mud cake while watching movies. However, after work that day, my mom showed up and said my family, who lived in the same house, were going to have a party for me, and I was dumb enough to believe her. But in reality, we didn't end up doing anything. How could we? I couldn't even choose a movie because Dad was watching what he wanted on Netflix, barely even talking to me. My mom had to lie about the price of my present to him, because I guess I'm not allowed to, as for expensive things on my 21st birthday. I spent the night in my mother's room watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine, cold and alone. After my mom drove me home, I went to bed wondering why I even bothered to go over there, since the only person it felt like who cared was my mother and maybe my two favorite siblings, John and Mia. I would have rather gotten nothing and spent the night at home alone watching shitty 80s action movies and eating HSP. At least that way, if I'm alone, it's in a way that I enjoy, on my own terms. The next year was my brother's 21st, and it broke me to see him putting in the effort when all he had to do for my 21st was let me choose the movie and buy some snacks. But he barely even talked to me. My mother took me to a steam railway for my 22nd birthday, and it was the best day I had in ages. It felt like I had my old mother back. We were both happy and I was over the moon with how much she tried. Anytime my dad is not in the picture, she feels so warm and loving, but when he is around, well, I'm lucky if I have a mother at all. Once Mia turns 18, I am getting her and John out of that house, and we are going to live together once again, this time without someone who shuts off the power without warning if he thinks you've been on a gaming console for too long, doesn't let us have any sort of social life without us giving him our social media passwords, and doesn't even let us leave the house unless we tell him exactly where we are going and for exactly how long. At the end of the day though, life goes on, and I can't keep letting my past define me. I can't keep living my life feeling so worthless and so alone. I have an amazing partner, Alex, who sticks by my side, even with my comically large amount of baggage to think about, and it's unfair to make them deal with the effects of my trauma. I think it's time I moved on with my life and focus on making the best life possible for myself and the family I choose keep in my life. Whether that be John, Mia, Alex, or my best friend who I consider a brother on the same level of John.